Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to continue my series talking about preparation for competing both nationally and internationally as a powerlifter, right? And making that transition from local level and domestic stuff to the international highest level of competing. Last time I talked about how travel can really take a toll on the lifter and how you can work to mitigate some of those effects, both food, time change, hydration and water cut, things like that. So if you haven't already, check out that video. Today we're going to pivot and talk about something a little bit more in competition. And this is something that has specifically affected me in the past. It's been a mistake that I've made and a change to my overall training approach and competition approach that I've made to really help my performances at these high level meets. So the issue that I'm talking about today is the pace of a meet. Now what I mean by the pace of a meet is how fast it's running. So how long does it take you to transition from squat to bench, bench to deadlift, and then also the pace between your attempts. So squat 1, squat 2, squat 3, how long in between. If you're used to competing at a local level, sometimes these paces can be much longer for various different reasons. Usually it's an efficiency thing. So if you think about it on a local level, the spotters and loaders are going to be less experienced. Usually the referees, or at least some of the referees, are less experienced. The meet director may not be super experienced, could be their first time running a meet. So all of these little things add up to give time as they're trying to figure things out as they go, and that kind of results in a long meet. A great example of this is, I specifically remember a Baltimore meet back in, it may have been 2018 or so. It was when I was competing for the USAPL. I just went down to handle some lifters, and the meet itself took 8 hours to progress through, right? And what that meant was the lifters had time to squat, and then maybe they left and went and got food, ate at McDonald's, and then came back before it was time to even warm up for bench. Okay, and that's exactly what I'm talking about as far as pacing goes. This is a long day. Now, there's challenges in itself of preparing for a meet that's going to be that long, but if we're talking about international level competing, the opposite's going to be true. Everything's going to be way more efficient. Usually there's less lifters, so the flights get condensed, and sometimes you even have just one flight, which leads to very quick turnaround time. And if you as a lifter, or me in the past, go from used to that local level pace to a high level meet, which is moving very quickly, it can be an issue, right? So I want to share a story with you all. And before I do, I want to make it clear, whenever I'm talking about high level meets, this could be worlds, specifically, usually it's IPF international meets that I'm talking about from experience. There are other high-level meets, I'm sure, that fit this criteria, but worlds, North Americans, Europeans, and then this can also apply to national level meets as well. So the Arnold Sports Festival, whether you're doing Raw Nationals with USAPL or Classic Nationals with Powerlifting America, USPA, any of those at a high level, you're probably going to run into some of this to an extent. So I think you can take something out of this. But back to my story. In 2019, I was at Junior Worlds in Sweden, and I was, in the hunt for a podium spot, in the hunt for the potential win, and we only had one flight. So what that meant was, at the end, so by the time the last person squatted, they set a timer, and it was a 20-minute timer. That's usually the standard at an international level. And at the end of that 20-minute timer, the first bencher goes. And what you have to understand with that is you're going to get probably at most maybe 25 minutes to warm up. Someone like me, who's usually at the end of the squat flight and the beginning of the bench flight, got even less time. It was 20-minute warm up. So the result here is quick turnaround, and if you're used to those long turnarounds and using all your warm-up time, which is what I was doing at the time, then you end up wearing yourself out. And I remember very specifically on the deadlift that day, I had, I think, 6 warm-ups, and because it took time for me to change into my deadlift socks, my shoes, all of that stuff to get ready to deadlift, by the time we got moving, I was pulling warm-ups, setting them down. The coaches for Team USA would load the next weight, and I would immediately pull them again. And what this does, it goes from a warm-up to an actual workout. And in the middle of a meet, you don't want to be tiring yourself out before you hit the platform. And ultimately, that's what happened. And I kept with that warm-up routine because that was my routine, right? It's scary to get away from those routines, but it was a detriment on that day. And ultimately what happened was I pulled my first deadlift. I was tired by my second deadlift, so my second attempt, I really had to grind it out, and I had no gas for the third to pull for the podium or anything like that. And I ended up being in 4th place, and there was a 3 or 4 way tie for third, basically. I ended up in 4th by body weight. But I truly believe, had I warmed up a little more properly, I would have been able to pull and end up in 2nd place on that day. But I was just completely gassed, and that's my fault as a lifter, just as much as being able to be strong enough and be prepared throughout the training cycle. So the adjustment that I made is, and I've had training playing probably on a loop here, I just want you all to see what I've done to my deadlift warm-ups as a result here. I took what used to be 6 or 7 deadlift warm-ups and condensed them, and now I only take 4 warm-ups at most to get to an opener level deadlift. And what this does is it gets me ready to take 120 pound jumps, 150 pound jumps, 100 pound jumps, to get to that opener level. And I'm not afraid of big jumps. And no matter how condensed that warm-up period is going to be, 4 warm-ups does not take long to pull, right? And I'll never be in a rush, and I'll never be in that fatigue state again. And ever since I made that transition, I have been a way more consistent performer on the deadlift on meet day. I used to have issues where I would miss third deadlifts. I made this adjustment, and all of a sudden those fatigue issues went away. And just in the 6 months from that Worlds to the Arnold the following year, at Worlds I missed a 722 pound deadlift, and in March I hit a 760 pound deadlift. Now, did I get that much stronger? No, but it was me adjusting for the meet conditions and being more efficient with my warm-ups. So as a plan, and I'll kind of round this out for you all, think your warm-ups through, but do not overdo it, especially in a condensed situation such as an international meet. Take your longest warm-up period before squat, because there is no limit to when you start warming up for the squat. Basically, you weigh in 2 hours before, and you can get moving whenever. For me, I like to start an hour before we actually begin squatting on the platform. That lets me do my terminal knee extensions, my hip swivels, all of that good stuff. The things that you can see on this channel that are my squat warm-up, plus my actual reps. And I take several squat reps to get warmed up for squat. And what that does is it sets me up for the rest of the day to not need many more warm-ups, because I'm just going to stay warm because the meet's moving so fast. Okay? So hopefully that helps you all out. if you're getting ready for an international meet, national meet, whatever it may be, please let me know down below. I'm interested to hear, what our viewers are going to do. I hope you all crush it, and hopefully you can take some of this advice and learn from my mistakes. So thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and until next time, happy lifting.